Account manager Wesley Gibson attends an office birthday party for his horrible boss, Janice. His watery eyes convey barely concealed misery as he all but glares at his boss, forced to pretend he enjoys her company for the day. Even his personal life is a disaster. His girlfriend is unabashedly sleeping with his best friend and coworker Barry. "I'm finding it hard to care about anything these days," says Wesley, staring morosely at his computer screen. Wesley's father left him and his mother when Wesley was just 1 week old. Wesley wonders if perhaps his father left because he fathered the most insignificant asshole of the 21st century. As Wesley muses about his father, we cut to an imposing, stern-looking man in a taxi entering a skyscraper with purpose. On approaching the woman near the top floor, he remarks, "Don't worry. If your name had come up, you'd have been dead already." He places a large bullet on her desk and questions how the owner of it had acquired it. While she inspects, he stares across the skyline at the construction workers on the other building. "It's clean, which means it's untraceable," says the woman, peering at the bullet through a magnifying glass. Suddenly, the man screams at her to "Jeet down," which she does not do in time, being shot through the forehead. The man turns to reveal that the construction crew on the parallel building is armed with weapons, preparing to fire directly into the building. He races to the back of the hallway, opening the elevator, crouching, and sprinting forward, as the camera distorts to the sound of a pulsing heartbeat. He then flies so fast down the hall that when he breaks through the window, he soars across a chasm and onto the other side. A massacre follows, with none of the men being a match to the assassin. He takes a phone call and speaks to someone named Cross, who bids him farewell as he finally notices he has stood atop an X. Suddenly, a bullet bursts through the man's forehead, killing him, which then boomerangs from its target to its source. Cross, sitting casually with a sniper rifle miles away. X marks the spot indeed. We then cut to Wesley asleep next to his girlfriend, painting the opposite picture of domestic bliss. En route to work, we see the very window that Cross shot the man through from Wesley's perspective. He stares pointedly at it before moving on. The train screeches, and the city awakes as Wesley walks. When he arrives, Janice sardonically scolds him for not having the billing report she needs. Barry is again at the dentist, while truly he is at Wesley's house making love with his girlfriend. Later in the day, Barry manipulates Wesley into buying his pharmacy purchase for him while musing about how to spike a woman's postcoital food with the morning after pill. When Janice again returns to abuse Wesley for his work ethic, the camera begins to shake and blur, her voice deep and distorted against his pounding heartbeat. Time slows for Wesley, who gulps down a handful of anxiety meds. He complains over narration about the monotony of his days, ending his by being denied his purchase at the ATM, which reads, "Instead you're broke." The only two options he receives are correct and incorrect. Dejectedly, he presses correct and sulks away. Returning to the pharmacy, Wesley walks up to the counter for his prescription, and out of the corner of his eye, spots Cross slowly walking to hide behind the shelves. When he turns around, a beautiful woman with dark eye makeup and a smirk, Angelina Jolie, is uncomfortably close to him, as if appearing from thin air. "I knew your father," she said. Wesley calls her bluff, but she bluntly continues, "Your father died yesterday on the roof of the Metropolitan building." Wesley uncomfortably laughs it off until she reveals that his father's killer is behind him. Pulling a gun, she shoves Wesley down and shoots. What follows is a tense 10-minute action sequence going from a shootout at the grocery store to a high-speed car chase down the streets of Chicago. Cars go flying, windows shatter, and there is Wesley on the passenger side of it all, characteristically panicking. A highlight of the sequence is the wrecked but swanky car. The two main characters are in blasting the Pina Colada song, rolling up to a duo of teenage boys who look on in awe. Wesley awakes the next morning in a dark, damp warehouse full of strange and scary killers. All surround him when a deep voice rings out from behind, "I thought he'd be taller." Sloan Morgan Freeman appears and quietly demands Wesley shoot the wings off of the flies in front of him by the count of 3, or else one of the men will put a bullet through his head, either you shoot or I do. Once again, we hear the overwhelming pitter-patter of Wesley's heartbeat and see Wesley aim at the flies in slow motion. Miraculously, against his protests, Wesley shoots both wings off of every single bug. Sloan explains that Wesley's panic attacks are not panic attacks. His heart rate can rise to 400 beats per minute, slowing the world around him for his superhuman focus. Sloan introduces the woman as Fox and quips that all of the people in the group are excellent at killing, so it would be best to remain on their good side. He explains to Wesley that his father was a member of the fraternity, and a good one. He has left all of his assets to Wesley, who he charges with the task of avenging his father. Wesley bolts. After waking up in a daze the next day, Wesley checks his bank account to discover he has indeed inherited his father's assets to the tune of $3.6 million. He arrives at work in a markedly good mood, unsettling Barry, who is not used to seeing him this happy or happy at all. Really. Janice comes around to begin her daily abuse once again, and Wesley has finally had enough. In a blaze of glory, he rips her to shreds in front of the office, beats Barry with his ergonomic keyboard, and struts out of the building. When he spots his photo on the newspaper as a person involved with the shootout the evening before, he panics before seeing Fox in her car. He hops in, driving off with manic positive energy, as she drives him to a massive textile factory outside the city. Once he arrives at the mill, he asks Sloane if it's a front, which Sloane denies. Frustrated with his lack of knowledge, Wesley pointedly asks, "Do you make sweaters, or do you kill people?" Sloane does not exactly answer. Fox leads Wesley to a room with a chair where a mysterious man named the repairman ties Wesley down and promptly beats him. When Wesley comes to being sprayed with a hose by Fox, he is greeted by a rough training sequence where he is in turns cut, stabbed, beaten, forced to shoot corpses, and put in a wax bath in order to repair his injuries until he can give a correct answer to the question, "Why are you here?" Meanwhile, Cross has been taking out members of the fraternity one by one. Eventually, Wesley accidentally answers the question correctly. In the middle of a brutal beating by Fox, "Why are you here?" "I don't know who I am." Thus begins Wesley's journey to discover who he is. After a talk with Sloane, he decides to become just like the man he never knew he could be, his father. A montage follows of Wesley training hard, going through grueling physical and mental tasks, in order to avenge and best him. The one skill Wesley struggles with is curving a bullet. This task he is able to execute once he is made to curve it around Fox herself, narrowly missing her, and hitting the bullseye dead on. Finally, he rises above the mousy non-combatant he was before, learning to hone his superhuman senses and become a real born and bred assassin. "First time in your life, Wesley, you're in control," remarks Sloane. Sloane then takes Wesley to see the Loom of Fate, where he shows him for the first time the reason the fraternity banded together there exists within the threads a hidden code, indicating through a binary the names of people meant to cause chaos within the world. When the fraternity finds the names, they forge stability out of chaos by killing the targets provided by the loom. Wesley is given his first target, Robert Darden. As he is about to pull the trigger on Darden, Wesley turns away at the last second and expresses his doubts to Fox. He questions the validity of the loom and whether or not Darden deserves to die. Fox then tells Wesley the story of a young girl whose father was burned alive in front of her by a target because a fraternity member, like Wesley, had not pulled the trigger when they needed to. She rationalizes the murders by stating that no one knows what ripples their choices cause, before revealing the brand burnt on her neck and that she was in fact the girl in the story. Wesley, moved, goes back and finishes the assignment, killing Darden. After several successful targets, Wesley returns to his apartment, dumps his girlfriend by kissing Fox in front of her and Barry, and leaves, his old life now completely behind him. While waiting for Fox to find another car for them, Wesley suddenly notices someone out of the corner of his eye cross. He draws his gun as Wesley prepares to fire, and their bullets collide mid-air. In the ensuing gunfire, Wesley is shot in the shoulder by Cross and accidentally kills a fellow fraternity member. While recovering, Wesley yanks out the bullet from his shoulder and analyzes it, discovering its origin is a man named Pekorsky. He then requests to meet with Cross alone in order to avenge his father himself. Once Wesley leaves, Sloane surreptitiously slides Fox a sheet with her next assignment from the loom Wesley. Fox and Wesley confront Pekorsky together, forcing him to arrange a meeting with Cross. As they wait, Fox and Wesley share a tense moment. "Have you ever thought of doing things differently?" begins Wesley. After a moment of back and forth, Fox definitively answers no. The meeting quickly goes awry when Cross arrives. On a moving train, Wesley finally engages with Cross. While they fight, Fox crashes her car into the train, derailing it and causing the train to fall completely off its track and nearly into the river below. Cross, moving quickly, attempts to shoot Fox as she recovers from the crash, but Wesley again deflects his bullets. When Cross attempts to save Wesley from falling out of the car, Wesley shoots him. Their entire train car falls off of the rest of the train, tossing them into the abyss. As he bleeds out, Cross reveals a shocking piece of information to Wesley: "You're my son." In the broken glass reflection, he notices Fox cocking her gun. He pleads with her to tell him the truth, and she does. Wesley was chosen for the assignment because he was the one person Cross refused to kill. Rather than die by Fox's hand, Wesley shoots the glass beneath him and Cross, tumbling down into the dark water. Wesley awakes in a room across from his old flat after being retrieved by Pekorsky, who reveals that they are in Cross's own apartment. While deep in denial and grief, Wesley learns from Pekorsky that his father was a rogue former agent of the fraternity who was trying to bring the corrupt institution down. Sloan discovered his own name had come up in the loom, and rather than admit it, he began profiting off of interpreting the loom himself. Cross discovered this deception, and thus sought to eliminate the fraternity and provide a peaceful life for his son, sacrificing his own in the process. While searching his father's rooms, Wesley discovers the plans for the fraternity's base, and decides then and there what he must do: kill them all, and let fate decide the rest. Using the very tactics he had learned within the assassin training, Wesley raids the base alone, destroying the factory and most of the assassins in a gory explosion of rats, bullets, and epic guitar riffs. Finally, Wesley screams out for Sloan in the library and is greeted by him and the rest of the assassins, guns cocked and at the ready. He drops in front of him the fabric with Sloan's name on it, exposing Sloan's corruption to the gathered group. Sloan, rather than denying it, tells the entire truth: every single person's name came up in the loom. He justifies his own actions by stating he had saved the lives of all of them so that they did not have to obey the loom or fate's demands. Sloan offers the assassins a final choice: kill themselves as per the code of the loom, or kill Wesley and live like gods. After a moment of deliberation, Fox shoots Wesley a knowing smile and pulls her trigger, curving a single bullet around the entirety of the room to kill every remaining assassin. Before the bullet reaches her, she launches her gun to Wesley, who catches it just as the bullet flies through her head, killing her last. Sloan escapes the chaos as Wesley shouts his name. Returning to his old job, Wesley is once again the unremarkable schmuck he once was. He sits at his desk, looking up his own name as he did in the beginning. Sloan arrives behind him, gun drawn. Wesley turns around, only it isn't Wesley. It's a decoy. Too late, Sloan sees the X marked beneath him. A bullet shoves through his head, as it did the first target at the start of the film. The bullet again pulls back through its trajectory, going back through Sloan's head, the window, the parking garage, Barry's power drink, and finally the window of Wesley/Cross's apartment, where he fires it. As the shot races through the air, Wesley narrates how he is finally taking back control of his own life, and at the last moment, shatters the fourth wall like a shot through the glass.